What happened yesterday at the Minnesota Catholic school is tragic. It's heartbreaking, as it is every single time something like this happens. And unfortunately, this leads us to have conversations about why this happens. And I'm hoping that the more we can talk about the why, eventually we will get to a place where we don't have to talk about this happening at all because it will have stopped. That is the goal of all of us, regardless of who you voted for, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of your ideology. None of that matters. We all want to see this stop in our schools, in our streets, in our communities, in our churches, everywhere. Fortunately, more people are acknowledging that this is about mental health and it's not about the weapon, which again, I can appreciate. But at this point, we do need to be able to have an honest conversation about the specific mental health issues that are caused by becoming transgender. And I know that's going to make people uncomfortable and it's probably going to get me a lot of hate, but it is becoming harder and harder to deny that there is an increased likelihood of someone committing an act of violence when they go down this path than if they didn't. And if we're truly interested in solutions, then this is something that has to be a part of that conversation. We have to be able to openly discuss it and be honest about what is going on here because there's a correlation of some kind. And to be clear as well, this is not me hating on anybody. It's not me wishing harm on anybody. It's not me wanting to discriminate against anybody. It's not me being a phobe of any kind. I just want to be able to talk about things based on reality. Before we get too much further, I am Outspoken Samantha, and I appreciate you guys clicking on my video. Please take a minute to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you have not done so already. So as we know, the individual that targeted these kids yesterday was a young adult who identified as transgender, a man that identified as a woman. And automatically, when we hear this, we're like, oh, yeah, they're mentally ill. But I think with that, we need to clarify what we mean when we say that, because leftists, of course, are going to automatically take that as an attack on the trans community. And they're going to exploit it to further the false idea that conservatives are just looking for any excuse to hate these people and that that's why these people are not happy. They want any concern that we raise about this ideology and what it's doing to people as proof that we don't believe trans people exist or that we don't want them to exist or that we're trying to paint them as dangerous to society so that everybody will reject them and that we're actually the problem. And after the horrifying incident played out yesterday and we learned the identity of the suspect, that's exactly the narrative that Mayor Jacob Frey chose to jump on. He immediately made this about victimizing the trans community.
I have heard about a whole lot of hate that's being directed at our trans community. Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of common humanity. We should not be operating out of a place of hate for anyone. We should be operating from a place of love for our kids.
Now, I can agree with what he's saying in theory, but according to idiots like this, his definition of hate toward the trans community is exactly what I'm doing in this video. I'm asking questions that need to be answered about what this ideology does to someone's mental health, because it has been pushed so hard in everything from preschool to pride flags in the senior center. And the reason they call it hate, and by they, I mean politicians and the media and their loyal echo chamber of liberals, is because they want to use fear and anger to divide us. They don't want honest conversations because real solutions don't serve their agenda. And if we do what they're pushing us to do, which is to ignore what drives people to do unthinkable things, they are setting us up for more tragedy. And no one wants that. For years, we have been told over and over and over again that Transitioning on any level will make people who are struggling with their mental health happier and that they'll feel more fulfilled. And that living as their true selves will correct whatever other issues that they have. We have been told that all they need is more acceptance and more use of preferred pronouns and normalization of men wearing dresses and women masculinizing their bodies. That's what's going to make society more loving and more accepting. Because if people can just supposedly live however they want to live, then we'll see less violence, less hostility, and society overall is just going to be better off. The medical field, through the gender affirming care model, which is basically to trans now and ask questions later. And we've had medical professionals blowing the whistle on this, trying to sound the alarm on how dangerous this is. And we're finding out that because it's been so heavily lopsided towards affirming first, ask questions later, that the real things they need help with are not being addressed.
Medical fallacy over and over, louder and louder, doesn't all of a sudden make it true. What you've already heard today and will continue to hear is this is life-saving, it's medically necessary, it's evidence-based, it's widely accepted in medical and mental health arenas as safe and effective, and it absolutely is not. So as a psychiatrist, I work with patients every single day. I prioritize seeing them, doing a primary assessment. I look at the biopsychosocial model. I talk about family issues and developmental challenges. Are they going through things? Are there things in their past or their present or traumas that they've been through that have influenced things? Diagnostically, I'm ruling out things that may be contributing to symptoms, whether it's depression, it's anxiety, it's distress related to gender or otherwise. We talk about all of those things. Then I talk with the patient about risk versus benefit. Realize this is a very exceptionalized approach to treatment that all of a sudden we ignore everything else. There's diagnostic overshadowing. Don't look at anxiety, don't look at depression, focus only on distress related to gender, and then immediately funnel these patients into an extremely harmful medicalized pathway. That's not medicine. My job is not to affirm, quote unquote, in that moment what the child thinks that they need or vulnerable young adult thinks they need. My job is to sometimes hold reality when reality is really difficult and really painful. And we have to walk through that and walk through it slowly. We don't rush to medicine. I think that's part of what has really driven this affirming model is that we have let go of evidence. I rely as a clinical psychiatrist on evidence-based data and guidelines. My own professional association, the American Psychiatric Association, published a book, Gender Affirming Psychiatric Care, in 2023. I, with several of my colleagues who are here today, we wrote a letter and said, how can you do this? This book says that puberty blockers are fully reversible and cross-sex hormones, they're generally safe. Let us provide harmful hormones at doses we've never prescribed before in children and young adults. It leads them down a path to surgeries. And that's not medicine. It's not acceptable. And we've heard from so many today that have gone through horrible traumas because of what medicine is doing.
And there have also been countless detransitioners, and this group is growing, who have come out and said, I was never trans. I was struggling with something else, but the doctor told me it was because I was living as the wrong gender and that changing everything would fix my problems. And to go a step further, a lot of times it's not even a doctor that tells them. They're coming across these conversations online on different apps and on different social media groups and listening to other people's stories. And they're like, I can relate to that. Therefore, if this person believes that being transgender solve their problems, then that must be what I need as well. And then they already go, if they seek medical transition, they go and they say, I already know that I'm transgender, and they get ushered on to the next step. But basically what happens is they go through all of these changes, but the condition that they actually need help with goes unaddressed. And then they have more mental and physical health problems that they're dealing with and the effects of hormones and drugs that they didn't need in the first place. And then they have a body and a mind that they don't recognize. And now they have to try to put everything back together while dealing with the problem that they initially had that did not get taken care of. This is a detransitioner that talks about her experience and just how careless the system really was with her health.
Transitioner, and I live in Lowell, but I work, worship, and do business in Nashua. And so I'm an active community member of the 603, and I'm here in support of SB 272 today. So like many children and teens today, I identified myself as transgender for years. And when I started to feel confused and ashamed about my developing body, I asked everyone in my life to call me by a new name and use male pronouns to refer to me. So in other words, I went through a social transition from female to male. Everyone in my life immediately affirmed my new identity, either out of full support for it or just to stay neutral and not cause any issues. The constant affirmation, both active and passive, solidified me in my transgender identity. No one meant to lock me into an identity that would later leave me broken, ashamed, and more confused than before. They were really all just being nice. But the social transition eventually wasn't enough, and I soon felt I needed to take testosterone. And when that wasn't enough, I had a double mastectomy. And when that still wasn't enough, I had a total hysterectomy, including the removal of my uterus, cervix, fallopian tubes, and both ovaries. There's no point of contentment during a gender transition. We get fleeting moments of euphoria, but ultimately one step leads straight into the next. And I thought that in the end I could really become a man, but all I became was a mutilated and abused version of my old self. Social transition is a big deal, and we're lying when we say that any of this is reversible.
Now, thankfully, after all of this stuff, there have been a lot of people who have been able to find the strength to heal and to make peace with the changes in their bodies that never needed to happen. And now they are going to have to live with forever. And have been able to return to their original name and pronouns, which involves having to face their friends and family and admit that they were wrong. And I've heard a lot of stories of people that have gone through this that said that they just stayed transgender for a longer period of time because they didn't want to admit that they were wrong, that they didn't want to go back to their family and say, oops, sorry, I put you all through this. Just kidding, I'm fine now. So there's that aspect of it that can lock people into this for a lot longer than they need to be, especially when they probably didn't need to be in this whole thing in the first place. But unfortunately, not everyone finds their way back. And they go completely the other way because they feel like the mess that they have made is too big to clean up and that they are too far gone for help. They've lost their identity. In some cases, they've lost their family and their friends and they're isolated. They've lost their sense of self, their stability, and their hope. And loss of hope is an extremely powerful thing. And that seems to be the case with the individual that targeted this school yesterday. It says Minneapolis school shooter Robin Westman confessed he was tired of being trans. I wish I never brainwashed myself. It says Westman confessed that he was tired of being trans and wished he never brainwashed himself in a manifesto posted online before he slaughtered 2 children and wounded dozens more at a Minneapolis church. In a twisted, handwritten journal he shared on YouTube before the massacre, much of which is encrypted in a homespun code of Russian Cyrillic script and English words, Westman groaned about his long hair and his decision to transition. I only keep the long hair because it is pretty much the last shred of being trans. I am tired of being trans. I wish I never brainwashed myself, he wrote. According to a translation by the Post, I can't cut my hair now as it would be an embarrassing defeat, and it might be a concerning change of character that could get me reported. It just always gets in my way. I will probably chop it on the day of the attack. Westman 23 later wrote that he regretted being trans and just wished he were a girl. I regret being trans. I wish I was a girl. I just know I cannot achieve that body with the technology we have today. I also can't afford that. Trans activists and liberals are always going to say that the reason trans people still struggle is because us conservatives, we can't handle progress and we just want to oppress people and control what everyone does and how they think. And that's why trans people end up lashing out and truly can't find peace in their identity. But while they're pushing those things, which again is a bunch of BS, and they know it's BS, which makes it that much more sinister. They want us to ignore the mental health crisis that they have played a part in creating, and that they are actually breaking people by pushing these destructive ideas, which are leading to destructive diagnoses. Is that a word? Diagnoses. And destructive drugs. A study found that hormones and puberty blockers were found to not have actually helped with mental health, but they also increased the likelihood of needing antidepressants and even antipsychotic medication. Detransitioners are the most outspoken on this, and they will tell you that they were promised happiness, but all they get are these fleeting moments of euphoria when they get these brief little times when they feel like they've accomplished their goal. But it's like a drug. It becomes an addiction to do that next thing that's going to get you to that next moment of euphoria, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. And they never actually achieve that long-term happiness, that stability, that contentment. And actually, a guy on TikTok popped up this morning and he was talking about how he actually transitioned and lived as a woman for 7 years and realized that he had it all wrong and that he was looking for these moments of euphoria when really he just needed to find his hope and purpose in something far more steady. And he found that in Jesus Christ.
Detransitioner, and I spent 8 years of my life living as a transgender woman and taking cross-sex hormones. And I'm also a recent Catholic convert. And these two things are intimately related because I've been doing a lot of soul searching about what were the deep root causes for my transition. Like why did I think that living as a transgender woman, modifying my body, cross-dressing, all this stuff, like why would that make me happy? And I come to realize that ultimately this is a spiritual issue. There is a spiritual wound in my life. And it comes down to what St. Augustine talks about in terms of a inner restlessness. There's a inner restlessness in everyone's soul that we are all longing for the transcendental. We are all longing for something bigger than ourselves, something internal. We are made by God for the eternal. And so we try and fill that void in our hearts with all kinds of things that, aren't really going to truly satisfy us. We fill it up with, the pursuit of pleasure, the pursuit of power, the pursuit of fame, the pursuit of success, all these different things. Common for transgender women to pursue euphoria. They don't really have a lot of dysphoria prior to transition, but they have a lot of euphoria when they cross-dress, when they, present themselves as women. And so that brings a lot of pleasure and joy. And so they chase that feeling, and it ends up becoming almost like an addiction. You get addicted to that feeling. And you're just seeking that out. You're longing for that sense of satisfaction, something that will calm that inner restlessness. And even when I detransitioned, it solved a lot of my problems insofar as I was now living in reality. I was grounded in reality, and I wasn't dealing with all the social anxiety that comes with trying to pass myself off as a female, and all the neuroticism that comes with passing and living as a transgender person. But even when I detransitioned, there was still this restlessness. I hadn't really solved my problems until I found Christ, until I found Jesus.
That is why I think all of these, Democrats, especially like Jacob Frey and idiots like Dana Bash and Amy Klobuchar, who were on CNN mocking people that were praying about this situation, praying for people and choosing to pray for people, that they mock that is because they know that that is what is truly going to fulfill people. But back to the initial issue, I am not saying that being trans makes you automatically violent, but we can't lie to ourselves and pretend that this isn't a factor. There has been this growing trend in trans violence, and not because these people are inherently bad or evil, or because I'm a Christian who believes that these people are going to hell, as liberals are probably going to interpret what I'm saying. I'm saying that taking people who do need help with something that is very real and lying to them about what's going to fix it, and not only that, adding something on top of the thing that they're struggling with, adding more of a struggle that they're eventually going to have to fix on top of the thing that they need to fix that hasn't been addressed, that's going to break people. And we cannot be surprised when they become broken down to the point where they don't care about themselves anymore. They don't think that they are fixable. And there is so much pain that they want to make sure that others feel the level of pain that they feel, even if it's the last thing they do. Hurt people hurt people. And to add to this, social media and TikTok are full of people who have accepted this extremist leftist ideology, which talks about nothing but death and destruction. White men are evil. Trump is Schmittler. Christians hate you. Israel is demonic. Palestine is suffering because a predominantly white, wealthy country doesn't care about the children suffering in Palestine. Prayer is pointless because God doesn't exist. If you don't listen to us, you'll die, or someone that you love is going to die, and it's going to be all your fault. Like, that is all that you hear coming from the left. So we don't wonder why these people are angry and outraged all the time. But in my opinion, there's a spectrum of misery that exists on the left. It's all miserable. It's just different levels of misery. You have the white liberal women who like to just get on TikTok and cry about whatever the trending injustice is. And then you have people pushed to the extreme, completely broken, who again act out and do things because all they hear is hopelessness. All they hear is death. All they hear is that there is nothing to fight for. There's no good that you can do. And this is unfortunately the way that they choose to deal with it. Anyway, I am grateful that people are having more conversations about mental illness and how that is actually what drives someone to pick up a weapon of any kind and harm innocent people, especially children. We do have a mental health issue. We have a violence issue because the crisis is becoming so big. And we have to be able to talk about everything that is contributing to that. And while transgenderism isn't the only mental illness that someone might have that might lead them to do something like this, we know that mental health is the major factor. And we also need to ask, are we helping the mental health crisis, or are we making it worse? And what is making it worse? And until we can address that, we are just setting ourselves up for more. Anyway, I would love to hear all of your thoughts on this in the comments below. Please be sure to hit the like button on this video and subscribe to my channel. Keep it real, guys, and I will see you in the next one.